My beloved brothers and sisters, there's a point in your life when your kindness begins to hurt you more than it heals others. When you start to realize that not everyone deserves access to your softness, your silence, or your time. You've been pouring endlessly from a cup that no one ever thought to refill, giving pieces of your peace to people who only know how to take. You've mistaken self-neglect for compassion and exhaustion for generosity, but kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-betrayal. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop being kind to everyone, because real kindness begins with truth, and truth says, not everyone is meant to sit at your table. Some people are meant to teach you where to stop giving, not where to keep trying. There comes a point in your life when you realize that being kind to everyone is not the same as being good, that your constant giving, your endless patience, your gentle understanding, they can all become a quiet form of self-betrayal. You've been taught that kindness is a virtue, that softness is strength, and it is. But what no one told you is that misplaced kindness is dangerous. It makes you a target for people who don't want your heart. They want your energy, your time, your validation, your light. You've been trying to pour from a cup that's been empty for a long time, and you keep wondering why it hurts so much to keep giving. You think being kind means being available. You think being good means never saying no. But there's a quiet truth you've ignored for too long. You can be kind without being consumed. You can love people deeply without losing yourself in the process. You can say no and still have a heart that's full of compassion. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to step back, to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, to stop giving chances to those who have proven they don't deserve them, to stop showing up for people who never meet you halfway, because the kindness you keep offering to the wrong people, it's not healing them, it's destroying you. There is a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop begging to be valued, when you stop bending yourself into smaller shapes just to be accepted, when you stop apologizing for needing rest, space, or solitude. There is a strength that blooms in you when you learn that kindness must begin with yourself. You see, there is nothing noble about letting people walk all over you. There is no virtue in always saying yes when your soul is screaming no. Sometimes your silence, your distance, your refusal. It is kindness in disguise because it teaches others that you are no longer available for chaos. It shows them that your love has boundaries. It protects the small flame inside you that the world keeps trying to blow out. You don't owe everyone your gentleness. You don't owe everyone your understanding. Some people will only take your kindness and twist it into guilt when you finally pull away. But that's not your burden to carry anymore. Kindness without discernment becomes a trap. You start mistaking your inability to say no for compassion. You start thinking that letting people stay in your life, even when they hurt you, is an act of love. But real love doesn't require you to shrink. Real kindness doesn't ask you to stay silent when your heart is breaking. There's a kind of wisdom that comes when you realize that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your softness. Sometimes protecting your peace means disappointing others, and that's okay, because your peace is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And maybe that's what you need to understand. You are allowed to stop being kind to everyone. You are allowed to be selective. You are allowed to choose where to give your warmth, where to give your time, and where to give your energy. Not because you've become cold, but because you've finally learned the value of your heart. There's a quiet kind of strength in walking away from people who drain you. There's a sacred kind of love in choosing yourself. After years of choosing others, you can still pray for them. You can still wish them well, but you no longer have to sit at every table you're invited to. You no longer have to carry everyone's pain on your shoulders. You no longer have to make yourself small just so others can feel big. You were not created to be everyone's healer, fixer, or emotional sponge. You were created to shine, to grow, to love wisely. Sometimes that means walking alone for a while. Sometimes that means saying, I love you, but I can't keep breaking myself for you. Sometimes it means letting go without bitterness, Because true kindness isn't just about giving, it's about knowing when to stop giving. It's about protecting the parts of you that make kindness possible. When your heart is whole, your kindness is powerful. When your heart is empty, your kindness becomes survival. And perhaps the most freeing truth of all is this: you don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't have to explain why you're not as available as you used to be. You don't have to defend the peace you fought so hard to find. Stop being kind to everyone, because not everyone will handle your kindness with care. Some will see it as weakness. Others will see it as permission to take more than you can give. So choose wisely. Protect your peace. Be gentle but not gullible. Be loving but not limitless. Be kind, but first be kind to yourself. There's a quiet exhaustion that comes from being available to everyone. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, like a shadow that grows each time you say yes when your heart is pleading for rest. You convince yourself that being there for everyone makes you strong, dependable, loving. But what it really does, if you're honest, is drain you until you no longer recognize your own needs. You become the person everyone turns to, the one who listens, who carries, who comforts, who gives and gives until there's nothing left inside you but the echo of your own silence. And then, when you finally reach your breaking point, when you finally need someone to hold you, you look around and realize no one's there. Because you've taught people that you don't need help. You've taught them that you'll always be fine. You've built a reputation for being the strong one, the kind one, the endlessly available one, and now that identity has become your prison. Being available to everyone doesn't make you more loving, it makes you more lost. It makes you forget that your time, your energy, your emotional space, they are sacred. They are not infinite. You can't keep pouring yourself into people who never pause to pour anything back into you. That kind of generosity may look noble, but it's actually self-abandonment. And no matter how spiritual or kind you think it is, abandoning yourself will never lead to peace. You can't serve from an empty soul. You can't heal others when your own heart is bleeding quietly beneath the surface. There is nothing holy about being everyone's savior. Because the truth is, you were meant to love, yes, but not to exhaust yourself for the sake of being seen as good. You were meant to give, yes, but not to the point of losing your joy. Sometimes being there for everyone is just a way to avoid facing your own loneliness. Sometimes it's a mask you wear because you fear what will happen if you stop giving, if you finally rest, if you finally say no. You fear people will leave. You fear being forgotten, but you must understand. People who only love you when you are useful never loved you at all. People who disappear when you draw a boundary were never meant to stay. There's a sacred lesson in learning to pull back, to stop picking up every call, answering every message, fixing every crisis that isn't yours to fix. There's a deep healing in realizing that you don't have to explain your unavailability. You can love people and still protect your energy. You can care deeply and still say, I'm not able to help right now, because your worth isn't measured by how much you give. It's measured by how true you are to yourself while giving. You have to start asking yourself, why do you keep giving to people who never notice when you're tired? Why do you keep answering calls that drain your spirit? Why do you keep opening your heart to those who never listen when you speak? The truth is, you're addicted to being needed, because when people need you, you feel worthy. But that kind of worth will destroy you. It's conditional, fragile, fleeting. Real worth isn't earned by doing. It's remembered by being. You are worthy even when you rest. You are valuable even when you say no. Maybe this is your wake-up call. To stop running on empty. To stop trying to be everything for everyone. You are not a machine built to absorb the pain of others. You are a soul that needs light, rest, and space to breathe. Every time you say yes when you mean no, a piece of your peace disappears. Every time you put someone else's comfort above your own boundaries, your spirit grows weary. You can't keep doing that and expect to thrive. You can't keep overextending yourself and expect to feel whole. You don't have to answer every message the moment it arrives. You don't have to drop everything to help. Every time someone demands your attention, you don't have to feel guilty for needing quiet, for disappearing, for choosing solitude. Those who truly love you will understand your need for distance. Those who only loved your usefulness will call you selfish. And that's how you'll know the difference. There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop being overly available. When you realize that silence is not rejection, it's protection. When you learn that being unavailable doesn't make you unkind, it makes you wise. Because not everyone should have access to you. Not everyone deserves your energy, your listening ear, your late night conversations, your time. You are not a public resource. You are a human being with limits. And yes, it might feel strange at first. It might feel lonely when you stop being the one who always shows up. But give it time. Slowly, you'll begin to see who values you for your presence, not your service. You'll begin to notice how peaceful your heart feels when it's not stretched too thin. You'll begin to understand that rest is not laziness. It's resistance against a world that demands your constant availability. So stop trying to be everything for everyone. Stop believing that love means exhaustion. The people meant for you will not drain you. They will respect your silence. They will understand your need to recharge. They will meet you halfway. You don't have to disappear for others to shine. You don't have to be constantly available to prove your worth. You can step back, you can pause, you can rest, and still be kind. In fact, that's when your kindness becomes real again. When it's rooted in peace, not in depletion. Not everyone deserves access to your kindness. That's a truth many people struggle to accept because they've been taught to see kindness as something that should never be withheld. Something you must offer to everyone without question. But here's the quiet wisdom people rarely tell you. When you give kindness to those who misuse it, it loses its purity. When you hand your compassion to people who manipulate it, it becomes a weapon used against you. There are hearts that feed on your softness, not because they value it, but because it makes you easier to control. They know your empathy is your open door, and they walk in and out of your life as they please, leaving chaos behind, knowing you'll always forgive. But kindness is not meant to be a weakness. It's meant to be a light, and you cannot keep giving your light to those who only seek to dim it. There's a dangerous belief that says, be kind anyway, no matter how you're treated. But real kindness is not about allowing yourself to be hurt repeatedly. It's not about letting people disrespect you and calling it humility. Kindness does not mean silence in the face of cruelty. And forgiveness does not mean permission to continue. There's a fine line between having a good heart and having no boundaries. And once people know that you'll tolerate anything in the name of kindness, they stop seeing your heart. They start seeing your weakness. You begin to attract the kind of people who thrive on your softness, who take and take without ever giving back. You begin to find yourself surrounded by users instead of friends, by energy drainers instead of companions. And that's when you begin to feel empty. You start questioning why you feel so tired when you're just trying to do good. You start wondering why your kindness feels more like a burden than a blessing. It's because kindness without discernment becomes self-destruction. You can't keep extending grace to people who refuse to grow. You can't keep offering your patience to those who interpret it as permission to mistreat you. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions without your constant cushioning. Sometimes compassion means stepping away so that you stop enabling what's hurting you. You are allowed to protect your kindness. You are allowed to close the door on those who keep slamming it. You are allowed to decide that your peace matters more than being seen as nice. Because being nice and being kind are not the same thing. Nice is about pleasing people. Kind is about doing what's right. Even when it means disappointing someone, there is kindness in telling the truth, even if it hurts. There is kindness in walking away when staying means losing yourself. There is kindness in saying, I love you, but I won't allow you to keep hurting me. You don't have to keep proving that you have a good heart by sacrificing it. You don't have to keep explaining why you're pulling back from people who have shown no respect for your care. The world will tell you that being selective makes you cold. But wisdom will tell you that it makes you free from the cycle of constantly fixing people who don't want to be fixed, free from the guilt of not being everyone's savior, free from the weight of people who expect you to heal their wounds while ignoring the way they keep reopening yours. The truth is, some people only come close because your kindness makes them feel powerful. They don't love you. They love your forgiveness. They don't respect you. They rely on your silence. And the moment you stop being endlessly kind, they call you selfish. But that's not selfishness, that's awareness. That's the moment you wake up and realize your kindness is sacred, and not everyone deserves to hold it. There is strength in withholding kindness from those who use it as a weapon, not because you're bitter, but because you finally learned the difference between healing and enabling. You finally learned that mercy has limits when it comes to self-preservation. You finally realize that you can pray for someone's peace without giving them access to yours, and that's growth, when you no longer need to prove your goodness by allowing others to misuse it. You see, real kindness doesn't ask you to destroy yourself. It doesn't ask you to stay in spaces that drain your spirit. Real kindness understands timing and boundaries. It knows when to stay and when to walk away. It's soft but not blind, loving but not naive. It sees through manipulation, and instead of fighting it, it quietly leaves the table. Because sometimes silence is the kindest response you can give to someone who keeps misunderstanding your heart. Stop letting guilt convince you to keep people close who keep wounding you. Stop believing that turning away means you've become unkind. The most powerful act of kindness is sometimes saying, "I'm done." It's realizing that not everyone is entitled to your forgiveness, not everyone deserves your presence, and not everyone should have a place in your peace. And when you start protecting your kindness like that, something beautiful happens. Your heart begins to heal. You start giving from abundance instead of exhaustion. Your kindness becomes intentional again. It shines without being exploited. You start recognizing the difference between people who are drawn to your light and people who only want to steal it. And then, kindness becomes what it was always meant to be. A sacred offering, not a sacrifice. So yes, be kind, but not to everyone. Be kind to those who handle your heart with care. Be kind to those who understand the value of your time, your presence, and your love. But to those who repeatedly take and give nothing in return, to those who mistake your softness for stupidity, let them go. Protect your heart, protect your peace, and remember, your kindness is not for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, not cruelty. But the world has a way of making you feel guilty for drawing them. It tells you that if you truly care, you'll always be available. It tells you that love means endless patience, forgiveness without limits, and silence when you're hurt. You've been told that to have a good heart, you must let people come and go as they please, no matter how many times they break you. But that's not love. That's self-abandonment, wrapped in a disguise of kindness. And one day, you wake up exhausted, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because you've built your worth around how much you can endure. Boundaries are not walls. They are not cold, cruel barriers meant to push others away. They are gates, beautiful, sacred gates that decide who and what gets access to your heart. They are the invisible lines that say, I can love you deeply, but I won't let you destroy me. Without them, you lose yourself trying to keep others comfortable. You start living for approval instead of peace. You start saying yes when your spirit aches for a no. And the longer you do that, the quieter your voice becomes, until one day you can't hear your own needs anymore. You become a background character in your own life because everyone else's happiness has taken center stage. Having boundaries means understanding that your energy is not infinite. It means recognizing that every time you give something of yourself, your time, your love, your attention, it costs you something. You can't keep giving away your emotional energy without ever refilling it. You can't keep saying yes to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You can't keep carrying others when you're already on your knees. Because the truth is, no one is going to protect your peace for you. No one is going to tell you, you've done enough, rest now. You have to learn to tell yourself that. You have to learn that saying no doesn't make you unkind, it makes you honest. And yes, some people will call you selfish when you start setting boundaries. They'll say you've changed, that you've become distant, that you've grown cold. But what they're really saying is, you've stopped letting me take advantage of you. Because boundaries reveal who's truly there for you and who's there for what you give them. When people benefit from your lack of boundaries, they will always resist your growth. But don't let that make you feel guilty. You're not here to please everyone. You're here to live in peace. Sometimes boundaries are not loud declarations, they're quiet choices, not answering the call that always leaves you drained, not replying to a message that reopens a wound you're trying to heal, not explaining yourself to someone who has already decided to misunderstand you. Boundaries can be silence. They can be walking away without an argument. They can be choosing to stay home instead of showing up where your soul feels unwelcome. You don't owe anyone your constant presence, your endless explanations, or your emotional labor. The most beautiful thing about boundaries is that they protect your ability to love. Without them, your heart grows resentful. You start giving out of obligation instead of affection. You start loving because you feel you have to, not because you want to. Boundaries keep your kindness pure. They allow you to love without bitterness, to give without feeling used, to serve without losing your joy. Because when you know where you end and others begin, your love becomes free again. It's no longer tangled with guilt or exhaustion. There will always be people who test your limits, who push your boundaries just to see if you'll bend again. And you'll slip sometimes. You'll go back to old patterns of overgiving, of saying yes too quickly. But that's okay. Growth is not about perfection. It's about awareness. Each time you feel that familiar ache of being drained, you'll remember, this is why I need boundaries. Each time you feel used, you'll whisper to yourself, I am allowed to protect my peace. You'll learn to pause before saying yes, to breathe before reacting, to listen to the quiet voice inside that says, not this time. And the more you practice this, the more peace you'll find. You'll start noticing that your energy feels lighter, your heart feels calmer, your mind feels clearer. You'll stop feeling like you owe everyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You'll stop confusing self-care with selfishness. You'll realize that the people who truly love you will never be offended by your boundaries. They'll respect them because they want to see you whole. Boundaries don't push love away. They make space for real love to grow, because real love doesn't demand your constant sacrifice. It values your wholeness. Real love doesn't drain you. It refills you. Real love doesn't break your peace. It protects it with you. You deserve relationships that honor your limits. Friendships that feed your spirit, connections that understand your silence without resentment. So stop apologizing for your boundaries. Stop explaining your need for space. Stop feeling guilty for not being everything to everyone. You are not here to be consumed by others. You are here to live fully, freely, peacefully. Every time you choose your boundaries, you choose your self-respect. Every time you say no to something that hurts your soul, you say yes to the person you are becoming. And that version of you, the one who protects their peace fiercely, who loves wisely, who no longer sacrifices their joy to be liked, that's the version that finally begins to live, not survive. You are not responsible for how others perceive your distance. This is one of the hardest truths to accept when you start protecting your peace. When you finally stop overextending yourself, when you stop being endlessly available to everyone, because the moment you pull back, people start talking, they start saying you've changed, that you've grown cold, that you're no longer the kind, soft person they used to know. But what they don't understand is that your distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You've simply reached a point in your life where you can no longer be everything for everyone, where you've learned that love without boundaries is self-destruction, and silence is sometimes the loudest act of self-care. You've spent so long trying to be understood by people who never tried to understand you. You've explained your heart again and again to those who only listened through the lens of their own expectations. You've apologized for being tired, for needing space, for not showing up the way you used to. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing. You don't owe anyone your presence when you're trying to protect your peace. People will always interpret your distance according to the story they've written in their mind, but that story isn't your responsibility to fix. You see, when you start growing, when you begin to change how you show up in the world, those who benefited from your lack of boundaries will feel uncomfortable. They'll call your growth arrogance, your peace pride, your silence indifference. They'll mistake your healing for hostility. But what they're really reacting to is their loss of access. They no longer have the same hold on you, and that unsettles them, because your distance reveals what was always true. Some people only loved your availability, not your soul. Some only stayed close because your energy was easy to take. You cannot keep shrinking yourself just to make others comfortable with your boundaries. You cannot keep apologizing for doing what's necessary for your mental and emotional well-being. There's nothing wrong with needing distance. There's nothing wrong with saying, I need time to breathe, to heal, to find myself again. You are allowed to step back without explaining the details of your pain. You are allowed to change without making everyone else understand why. Growth is often misunderstood by those who aren't growing. Your distance might make others uncomfortable, but it will bring you peace. Because distance is not rejection, it's redirection. It's a sacred act of self-preservation. It's you choosing peace over pressure, clarity over chaos, healing over habit. You can love people and still not want them near your energy all the time. You can forgive someone and still choose not to reconnect. You can wish someone well and still walk away. That's not bitterness, that's maturity. It takes immense strength to understand that love doesn't always mean proximity and